Today on NewsWatch, joining forces with Iran, why the U.S. may be about to work with an enemy that has sworn to destroy us. Plus, she's free from jail, but still fighting for her religious freedom. Hear what's next for Kentucky clerk Kim Davis. And destiny. We'll go one-on-one with Bishop T.D. Jakes and hear how God put him on a path to become a Christian leader with international influence. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Caitlin Burke. First came the nuclear deal with Iran. Now the Islamic Republic is being asked to help end the war in Syria. Iran's invitation to peace talks, along with stepped-up military tactics against ISIS, signals a changing U.S. strategy for the Middle East. Gary Lane has the story.
The U.S. shift in strategy was apparent at the U.S. State Department Tuesday, when spokesman John Kirby announced the Islamic Republic of Iran is being invited to attend Syria peace talks in Vienna.
At some point in the discussion, moving towards a political transition, we'd have to have a conversation and a dialogue with Iran.
Kirby made it clear the United States did not invite Iran, and the country is not a partner, but a stakeholder in Syria. And Defense Secretary Ash Carter says U.S. troops will now be more involved in actual combat against ISIS, like the recent rescue operation in Iraq, when special forces joined with Kurdish Peshmerga troops.
We won't hold back from supporting capable partners in opportunistic attacks against ISIL.
Or conducting attacks directly from the air or on the ground, said Carter. The goal for now is to recapture Iraq's Anbar province and seize the ISIS capital city of Raqqa, Syria. And there's growing recognition that Syrian President Assad, now with active Russian combat help, will remain in power. The French are now considering reopening their embassy in Damascus. It was closed back in 2012. Is this a shift in Syria policy or a collapse? Senator Lindsey Graham says Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah are all acting to ensure Assad remains in power, and the Obama administration isn't doing anything to stop it.
He is secure as the day is long. So this is what's happened, folks. This strategy is completely falling apart.
The stepped-up fighting has caused more civilians to flee. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees suggests the world is at the breaking point in handling the largest displacement of people since World War II. He says the United States, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and others must come together to end the Syria war.
The question for me is, are the parties that are relevant to this conflict already convinced that the risks they all face are so big that they are more important than the differences among them or not? My sincere belief is that it is a suicide to let this war go on.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
The Czech Prime Minister says his government is ready to agree to take in more than 150 Christians living in a refugee camp in Iraq. He says the Czech Republic will work with the non-government organizations to share the expenses of moving the families, but it won't be until the proposal's approved by the government after talks at the UN. Meanwhile, California Congressman Dana Rohrabacher says Christians are facing genocide in the Middle East. At a hearing Tuesday for the global crisis of religious freedom, he said ISIS is targeting Christians for extinction. Rohrabacher says the U.S. needs to be a safe haven for targeted believers. 8 men are on trial in Germany, charged with robbing churches and schools to fund Islamic State terrorist groups. The leader of the gang is a Muslim from Morocco who's accused of attending an ISIS training camp. Prosecutors say the gang stole 19,000 euros worth of goods from 2011 to 2014, taking items like offering boxes, laptops, and crosses. A German media outlet called DW.com reports the funds were then sent to jihadist groups in Syria. There's a move in Congress to impeach the head of the Internal Revenue Service. The Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee says the IRS chief violated the public trust and obstructed congressional investigations into the IRS abuse of conservative groups. Representative Jason Chavez says impeachment is an appropriate tool to restore public confidence in the IRS. This comes after the Justice Department said no IRS official would face criminal charges. Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson is surging in the polls. That's one reason many are expecting more fireworks from Donald Trump at tonight's third GOP debate in Boulder, Colorado. CBN's David Brody is in the Mountain West with a preview.
This presidential soap opera has clearly been entertaining and surprising. The latest turn? A new CBS New York Times national poll shows Ben Carson overtaking Donald Trump as the GOP frontrunner. The billionaire is scratching his head.
Trump losing in polls to Carson. Carson. I don't think Carson's going to negotiate really well with China, folks, in all fairness. Okay? I don't think so. And I like him. I don't think so.
Expect some Trump jabs Wednesday night. As for the doctor, Carson told CBN News he's hoping voters will see what he represents.
Well, I hope that they will look at my life, look at the entirety of my life, and see that it has been dedicated to the uplifting of people by leading a life that's not full of scandal and adhering to the values and principles of our Judeo-Christian foundation.
Carson's not the only candidate who's relying on faith to help his case. Ted Cruz believes he will eventually move higher, and he tells CBN News the reason why.
I'm the only one on that stage who has a record of standing up to Washington over and over again, defending the Constitution, defending liberty, defending religious liberty. And I think that's why we're seeing such incredible enthusiasm among the grassroots.
Cruz, Carson, Trump, and others want to strike gold with the key evangelical voting bloc. While this debate could begin to show movement, strategist Ralph Reed doesn't expect any tidal waves.
This idea that there's going to be a coalescing behind one candidate, that's a myth. That's not going to happen, number one. The evangelical community is very vibrant, it's not monolithic, and it doesn't march to a single drummer, and it's not easy to command.
This debate here in Colorado is mostly going to center on the economy, and that's going to give Ohio Governor John Kasich and former Florida Governor Jeb Bush a chance to tout their economic records. Bush will take the opportunity to lay out his just-announced entitlement reform plan, a subject he spoke about Friday at Regent University.
My belief is that once you reach 67, or 66 now, but ultimately 67, you should have to, your payroll tax as an employee, you should keep it. Because that's the way you're going to save money more directly and be able to live a life of independence.
Just one of the topics on tap for what is expected to be yet another night of presidential must-see TV. David Brody, CBN News, in Boulder, Colorado.
The Center for Medical Progress has released a new video from their investigation into Planned Parenthood's illegal harvesting of baby body parts for a profit. The latest video shows a Planned Parenthood doctor describing a partial birth abortion procedure to terminate living late-term babies, a practice that's illegal under federal law.
So usually what I do is if it's a breech presentation, I'll remove the extremities first, the lower extremities, and then go for the spine and sort of bring it down that way.
Dr. Dermish also admits she's striving to harvest brain tissue.
I haven't been able to do that yet.
Oh, to get the calvarium?
Intact.
That's like maybe next time.
I know, right? Well, this will give me something to strive for.
Planned Parenthood is currently under congressional investigation. Members of Congress are weighing in on the case of a Washington State football coach under fire for praying after games. Virginia Congressman Randy Forbes and Oklahoma Senator James Lankford led 47 members of Congress in a letter to the Bremerton School District supporting Coach Joe Kennedy. The school board has told him if he doesn't stop his tradition of praying, he could be fired.
It's a gross violation of the law. This same opinion would prevent a Jewish teacher from wearing a yarmulke. It would prevent anyone from wearing a cross around their neck, or perhaps even saying God bless you when someone sneezes in their classroom. I think the American public is just fed up with this overreaction to any time anybody is religious in this country.
Have the support from the congressman, and that Coach Kennedy plans to treat this Friday like any other, praying on the field after the game like he's done since 2008. The largest meeting of pro-family advocates is underway in Salt Lake City, Utah, with more than 3,000 attendees from 60 countries. The 9th World Congress of Families kicked off Tuesday. It's an international interfaith conference designed to support life, traditional marriage, and the natural family, which includes a husband, a wife, and children. Evangelical leader Janice Krause is the executive director of this World Congress. She told CBN News they're expecting demonstrations from liberal activists after the Southern Poverty Law Center labeled their group a hate group for their conservative views.
We do not hate anybody. We do not promote violence. We do not condone violence. And so I think it's important that we convey that message. And I'm praying that God will provide a shell of protection around us in Salt Lake City so that those who have spread false images of us will see that we are people who spread God's love.
CBN News has a crew covering the event, and we'll have a longer report next week once it concludes. CBN Disaster Relief is still hard at work in Mexico, helping the victims of Hurricane Patricia. In the community of Pino Villa, crews helped clean up more than 20 houses and a school. They're also helping clear this massive tree that fell on a church. The crew's also making chlorine so residents can have clean drinking water. To learn how you can help CBN Disaster Relief, check out our website at cbnnews.com. Coming up, she's been a lightning rod for same-sex marriage activists, why Kim Davis's legal troubles aren't over yet. New immigration policies in the United Kingdom are making it more difficult for missions groups to sponsor foreign workers. Christianity Today reports the United Kingdom Visas and Immigration Agency stripped Operation Mobilization's license to sponsor visas. Now 66 OM staff and volunteers will have to leave the UK within 2 months. The group's UK director says the requirements on visa sponsors have increased dramatically in recent years, making it very hard for many similar organizations to keep up. OM plans to reapply for its visa sponsor status in 12 months. Kim Davis just dodged a new attack on her beliefs. This week, a federal judge denied an ACLU attempt to open a new case against the Kentucky clerk. Meanwhile, her attorneys are preparing to file an appeal in her original case. Davis is still fighting for her religious rights, saying no one can force her to endorse same-sex marriage licenses. Last month, CBN's David Brody met up with the team defending Davis.
The rolling hills of northeastern Kentucky, home to beautiful scenery, biblical values, and on especially hot September days, the churches here come prayer conditioned. Here in Grayson, evangelicals turned up the heat. They came here to rally for Kim Davis's freedom and enjoyed something even better.
Thank you all so much.
The same judge that put her behind bars also let her go, saying that since her deputy clerks began issuing licenses to gay couples, there would be no reason to keep her in jail. If she tries to interfere, however, there could be more legal trouble. For now, though,
we serve a living God who knows exactly where each and every one of us is at. Just keep on pressing. Don't let down. Because he is here.
We need to stand up. We need to stand up as believers, stand together. And, our country was founded on Christian principles.
GOP presidential candidate Mike Huckabee met with Davis after her release. So did GOP presidential candidate Ted Cruz. But politics took a back seat, with Huckabee telling CBN News this was a day to believe in a God of miracles.
This is a God of miracles performed today. Is this what happened?
I think it is a God of miracles that we saw act in getting Kim Davis out of jail. But her being in jail brought attention to something that many of us have warned about, the criminalization of Christianity.
This fight has been brewing since the Supreme Court ruled in favor of gay marriage. Chief Justice John Roberts warned that events like this would happen, and that finding a right to marriage equality in the Constitution would raise future problems when people of faith exercise religion in ways that may be seen to conflict with the Supreme Court decision. Christians here believe the time is now to take a stand.
We have to be ready. The Apostle Paul says we got to be steadfast and unmovable. Always be ready to stand up and stand out for Jesus Christ.
As for Kim Davis's future, her lawyers want an accommodation so that her name or authority doesn't have to be part of the marriage license. They believe the Kentucky governor can solve the problem with an executive order that allows the authority of the license to come from the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Whatever happens, despite her release, she won't back down.
And she will not violate her conscience, and she will not abandon her post
at that position that she's been democratically elected to serve.
The small town of Grayson, Kentucky now has a permanent home on the religious liberty map, and that map will be littered with fights all over the country. Grayson, Kentucky, just the beginning. David Brody, CBN News in Grayson, Kentucky.
All this week, we're bringing you stories of Christians under fire around the world. It's a reminder that the International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church is coming up, and you can join believers from around the world in prayer during a special 2-hour webcast this Friday, October 30th. Just visit cbnnews.com at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to watch this exclusive live event. Up next, T.D. Jakes talks about his new role as a daytime TV talk show host. Hear why he's so excited and what he plans to talk about when we come back. T.D. Jakes is the pastor of one of the largest churches in America, the Potter's House in Dallas. He's also a best-selling author and a filmmaker. And next year, he'll take on a new project that could make him famous far beyond Christian circles. John Jessup interviewed Bishop Jakes about his upcoming role as a TV talk show host, and it's in connection to his newest book called Destiny.
By his own admission, the rise of T.D. Jakes is an unlikely story. A boy from West Virginia who would become a man of faith with international influence. Time magazine even asked on a 2001 cover if Jakes were the next Billy Graham.
If you're glad to be in the house of the Lord, put your hands together and give him a praise.
How did he get here? For him, it was a dance with Destiny, the title of his latest book that follows last year's bestseller, Instinct. What birthed this book?
Well, you know, I think it's a continuation of that whole conversation of understanding how our innate instincts that God placed inside of us has something to do with our destiny. And then to connect the dots between the two, that whatever is drawn out of us was first instinctually placed inside of us because God has intrinsically placed some things in you for you to fit in a particular place of purpose. Purpose is the question that I most often ask. People are really trying to find their purpose in life, and I wrote this book for that reason. Because it is painful to be stuck.
Jakes believes everyone has a purpose and the God-given tools to fulfill them. So we asked what he thought about the destiny of Kim Davis, the Kentucky County clerk jailed for refusing to issue marriage licenses to gay couples.
Do you think that she stepped into her destiny when she made a stand for her religious beliefs?
I don't know that that's so much a destiny call as much as it is a personal conviction. We'll see if it's a destiny call, because sometimes you can make a decision like Rosa Parks, okay, made a decision that certainly affected the trajectory of her entire life. And I think it's too early to evaluate what's going to come out of that. But I am so glad that her decision was the catalyst of deeper conversation.
Like other faithful followers, from the average Christian to the Pope, Jakes is no stranger to criticism.
It's okay to be controversial when you're a Christian. It's okay to be criticized. Criticism does not negate the positive. Sometimes you have to cause unrest to bring about change. All of us do.
Jakes sees the best way to counter attacks on Christian values and people of faith is to offer a positive response.
The Bible has warned us before the end time that we're going to have persecution and some things cannot be stopped. But I do think that some of the attack that comes on us as Christians is a result that we don't stand up and speak up and take control of the narrative that portrays us in lights other than identifying us by what we are against rather than knowing us by what we are for. I think that one of the things that we can do as Christians is we can either scream at the darkness or we can light a candle. We can complain about the images and the way that we are portrayed in the media, or we can get involved in media and change the way people see us.
The hospital staff said that your son was not expected to survive.
A change he's making, producing films like Heaven is for Real, Sparkle, and Miracles from Heaven, to be released next year. Willing to challenge both today's culture and even the views of Christians, he takes on hard topics like gun violence, the impact of social media, and mental health issues. Each of those were felt when a gunman targeted Christians at an Oregon college campus.
Those students who were killed, many of them identified themselves as Christians. Was that a demonstration of destiny under courage?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, we salute the fact that they had the kind of courage to stand up and acknowledge that they were Christians. And I would wonder in my own mind, I'm not sure, I haven't verified, that there may be people who were Christians who did not have such courage, who now live with the guilt and the grief that maybe I have let God down in, and perhaps you have, but the reality is Peter did that too, and God forgave him. Just because you didn't have that kind of courage doesn't mean that God doesn't have the kind of grace that covers your deepest, darkest fears. Because a blessing given too soon is not a blessing at all.
And it's that straight talk mixed with the gospel message that's opening a new door.
Welcome to the show. Today's show is called Courage Under Fire.
Jakes could become a household name like Oprah, Dr. Phil, or Steve Harvey. Last summer, he wrapped up a trial run of a TV talk show that's been greenlighted for national syndication next year.
What was it like for me? I loved it. To be the first minister to have an opportunity to have a daytime talk show,
wow.
It's exhilarating. To be able to reach a broader audience of people and to convey our messages in a palatable form, but still a challenging form that kind of turns the dial a little bit on our culture. For me, this is fun to get to sit down and reflect on all of the experiences I had in and outside of the church and to present them to the world in a form of solutions that they could use to galvanize them and reconstruct maybe how they feel about faith.
A pastor whose footprint in faith is expanding into new territory. John Jessup, CBN News.
The Hindi version of the 700 Club is celebrating 10 years of broadcasting the gospel throughout India and Pakistan. ENZ is a daily Hindi show based on real-life stories of ordinary people living extraordinary lives through the power of God. The program also highlights how CBN is bringing hope through humanitarian relief to people throughout India. ENZ currently airs Monday through Friday on a major Hindi network with a potential viewing audience of about 97 million homes across India and Pakistan. That's it for now on CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com. And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.